Oh, Mr. Divine, with a bass.
I know.
And this wasn't recorded months ago, right? This isn't pre-surgery.
If anybody's actually watching this is the first time I've properly played a bass since I had the operation. And it feels amazing. Interestingly, this when I walked in today, I was like, oh, well, actually, so to be honest, I didn't know I was going to play a bass. Gav, who's over there behind the camera, he was like, you gonna hold a bass today? And I was like, you know what? I might hold a bass today. So I grabbed, I don't know why, but I grabbed this bass, which is incredible. It's a BB, which is it? The BB 3000, yeah. I'm not sure what year it is, but these basses are just incredible. And I got this a couple of years ago. The great Jonathan Marin inspired me to get this bass. Oh, maybe that's the thread, because I was watching Jonathan Marin playing the other night. Not in real life. I was sat there since I had the operation. We can speak about this in depth if you want to, but since I've had the operation, I have just sort of like fallen in love with music again. And I think that everybody listening might be able to, I guess, sort of, I'm sure that you've had this feeling before, right? Where there's periods of your life where you are so into all of the music and you're just consuming it and finding new artists and doing that whole thing. I'm sure that you can resonate with that. But then sometimes you go on these dry spells where you might not be as inspired as you have been in the past before. And that was definitely, I've been through, various experiences and times like that in my life. But this, going through the operation that I had now 5 weeks ago, going through that operation, since then, it was like this, I guess, this complete new paradigm that I felt like I shifted into. I woke up and I was like, holy shit, this arm and like playing the bass is really important to me. And it was one of those experiences where I think that I needed that to happen to actually wake me up and give me a slap around the chops. I was like, oh my word. Well,
and it wasn't that you were like, I mean, let me ask you this. Was it that you were not interested in music previously, or had you fallen? I mean, I know that you were listening to different kind of podcasts, business podcasts, other stuff that wasn't music related, but you were still interested in music.
Oh yeah. Like I was interested in music, but just not, I didn't have the fire. Can you remember when you were a kid and you were just like, it was like you were an addict. I have gone full addict mode since the operation, and I absolutely think and I'm hoping that it carries on as well. I'm sure that it'll fluctuate, but it was a real wake up when I found that I couldn't play. You had that's been taken away from you now, and you don't know when you can play again. You don't know. The surgeon's saying this, well, it could be.
What did the surgeon say?
He didn't say anything. And I kind of knew that he wasn't. Like, my brother broke his neck a long time ago, over a decade now. And through going through that experience, I kind of knew that they don't make any promises because they know that, they don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
there's not this whole thing of you'll never play again, or like, oh, you'll be playing in 3 weeks.
Like he didn't say that I wouldn't be able to play again. So that was cool, but he didn't.
Good. Yeah.
But I'd looked online, I'd done my research and spoken to him, and he said, you might get your sling off from anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. Well, that's like that's the difference between 3 and 6 weeks, a long time in my book anyway, 3 and 6 weeks. Like I'm 5 weeks in now, and yesterday was my first full day without the sling on. And I would say that today is the first day that I haven't been in moments in the day are like debilitating pain where I just can't do anything. Like yesterday was okay, but before that, it's interesting. Week 1, well, just that was an experience. I'll talk about it at a different time. But hell,
you can talk about it now.
It was real.
Was it brutal?
Brutal.
Yeah.
Way worse than I thought. Because can you remember when you were a kid And, you've got your cool we were talking about stereos yesterday, right? You got your cool stereo in your car, and you've got your speakers that you've fitted. And maybe people don't do this anymore. But back in the 90s, people, this is what we did. We geeked out on stereos, and we got these custom power amps, and we put them in the car. And that whole thing, right? And you're listening to yours, and you're like, yeah, it's badass, it's banging, it's badass. And that's all you know. You think yours, and then you get into your friends, and his is like that. Yeah. And he's like, oh, there's another level. There's and like suddenly you're like, oh shit, my stereo's nowhere near. It sounds like a freaking sparrow farting compared with this guy's stuff. So this was like my experience of, I guess, just pain in general. Like I've had different things over the years. I've had like, chronic back pain and stuff for a long, long time. But just in terms of like debilitating pain, I just haven't experienced anything like that. I've had wisdom teeth out and stuff like that. And but this was real. This was it's interesting. And I'm sure that there are people listening to this or watching this on YouTube, and they're like, they've been through that, and they're like, oh yeah, when you go through an operation, it's like your body just kind of like shuts down almost, or at least it did. That's what happened with me. Yeah. My body for that first week, for the first like 3 to 4 days was just like, that's it, out. I just slept pretty much for 4 days, nothing else. And I'd wake up, I'd shuffle around. I like cry twice a day. Like no shit. And it was always Daisy that did it. It wasn't like I wasn't weeping in sort of like, remorse for myself or anything like that. Basically the dog had just got super excited. She'd come and jump on me. She'd always jump on that shot. And it was just like somebody stabbing me multiple times. So I just like weep.
Like crying, not emotional, not like you're seeing a commercial.
Yeah, not an emotional way. Just pain. Just
pain.
Just pain. A couple of times a day, always by, and Lisa would always be like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And she'd take, and I was like, don't let the kids see me. I was like, keep the kids away. I don't want them to see me like this, because I don't want them to have an operation in the future and be freaked out by seeing their dad shuffling around like a freaking, 90-year-old sort of like about to fall off the perch. So,
oh man,
that was the first week. Second week was definitely better. Third week, great. And then, like obviously there's like a lot of swelling in the area and stuff. And as the swelling's gone down, I've just started to get all of these trapped nerves, basically, like nerves being pinched, like weirdly on my back, on the back of my shoulder blade. So all of these sort of like nerves being pinched. So, and I haven't really had that sort of like trapped nerve thing going on before. But this is like, it is intense. It's like somebody shoving a fork through the skin into the like that. And it's like, and up until yesterday, really, I had these couple of weeks where it was okay. And then I had this 1 week where it was just like brutal. And it was like any movement of the right hand side of my body, and actually any movement of my body in general, I would get these like massive nerve shocks down in my shoulder blades and up my neck and stuff like that. But yesterday was good. And then today was even better. And I'm feeling good. So I'm sitting here, all that to say, with
you weren't even going to play. You weren't going to grab a bass today.
Yeah.
But listen to this.
And I'm here. And I'm sat in a bit of a peculiar position. The reason is, if you're watching it, is that I'm sat in like a pseudo-classical guitar position, because I can't put... So if I move my arm like this, by the way, if anybody's wondering what the hell am I talking about, I've had a shoulder reconstruction surgery. So shoulder reconstruction surgery, not my ball, not the ball joint actually going into my body. That's fine. Right. It's how the shoulder's suspended off my torso, basically. So your shoulder is suspended off your clavicle, which is like your collarbone, right?
Yes.
And from your AC joint, which is in the top of your shoulder here. And I completely messed my AC joint up and like dislocated, and it was sticking up and it was all gnarly and horrible. So they had to chop off the end of my collarbone. And then obviously that means that your shoulders semi just floating. It's not fully attached other than the ball joint. It's not attached to your torso. So they need to reattach it. And they reattach it using synthetic straps that they screw through the top of the collarbone and then reattach back down here.
Yeah.
So it goes through here.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, so it's pretty intense. Yeah.
It sounds as intense as my dog dying to get out of my studio.
Sorry,
right now,
Ginger.
because
Ginger's jumping up at the door.
She hears. Yeah, let me just let her out real quick.
Yeah, just let her out. Just let her out.
Sec.
I will carry on. I'll keep on telling the my tale of woes. So I can move my arm to the side of me up like that. You imagine how if you're not watching this on YouTube, I'm doing a birdie impression. I can move my arm up like that. I can also move it in front of me to about. I can get my hand up in front of my face. But I can't get my arm around. Like if I want to touch my butt cheek, for instance, right, with my right hand, it's my right hand that's being affected. It's really hard to actually do that, to put my arm back. And if you're with a bass, if you sit with a bass, check it out, your arm does go back because you're not sat with the bass like straight onto your body like that. You're not doing this. You're actually, the bass is tilted back, which means the arm, oh God, goes back.
You have to pull it back this way.
That is death.
It's not happening.
That's not happening. So I don't know. I was talking to the surgeon yesterday. I went to see the surgeon about it. I'm not sure. I don't know, like whether that's going to be okay in the future or not, or whether I'm going to have to just change the way that I play. He said that's the worst. Out of this moving up here, this moving out here, the moving backwards.
Look at that. You have all that.
I have. That's as far as I can go, though. I can go to so my hand's about in front of my face. Anything above, if I've got an itchy head, I need to sort of tilt my head.
You need to bring your head to your hand.
Yeah, and I can do this, but it's okay. But putting my arm behind me is just like brutal. And he said that's the hardest of the lot. So whether that means that's going to have, repercussions in the future in terms of how I play, who knows? So if you see me in future YouTube videos and I'm sat more like a classical guitar player with it on my left leg, instead of my right leg, that is why. It's because I can't put my arm behind my body anymore. But I've got my fingers crossed that it's going to be okay and it'll be fine. And actually, depending on the bass, it's actually nice to play like that.
Yeah.
Because it's just like really it's like makes everything like really accessible.
Yes.
If the neck was longer, if I was playing a bit, like if it was a 35-inch scale or something like that, I could see it getting drag, like a bit of a drag trying to reach the end of the headstock. But yes. Yeah, so
it's just going to encourage you to play up high, dude. All the noodly stuff.
Yeah,
encourage you to go.
Do you want to know the lick of the in my hospital visit?
Yeah.
I was thinking about licks on the bass, and I had this one lick. I was like, I wonder what that sounds like. In my mind, I was like, oh, what's that going to sound like?
You're playing it in your mind.
Yeah, I was like playing it in my mind. And you've heard me do this before, right? So, I do that all the time, right?
The sixths that move.
I do that all the time, right? So, but I wanted to get 3 like stacked. And this was the lick.
Show us this.
So it's on a D, like D dominant 7. You slide into the major third, and you hit the octave, the D, yeah, and then you slide everything down a whole tone.
Oh wow,
that's it. And then with your second finger, you put it on the C, and then you play it, and then you slide that up to the D, and then you hit that top B with your index finger, and then slide that down.
C6.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you repeat the first thing that you did, but an octave down. So it goes like this. And then the trick is to like...
incorporate it.
Yeah, like is to actually get it
man,
in. So,
that's so cool.
But I was sat there in hospital wondering, like,
Scott Divine.
I was wondering what that was going to sound like. I got out and I was like, sounds pretty damn cool. I'm going to use that.
Sounds cool. I love it, man. That's great.
So that's the injury, and obviously we can, there's a million things to talk about, but the one thing we should talk about is I guess the sort of the new program that we release in, or has been released, and is open for enrollment right now. But I thought it could be cool sharing the story about how the injury relates to it, and like the anxiety, because you only knew yesterday.
Exactly.
I only told you
this. I was like,
I
Scott
told you and Lydia the full
on
story.
Fire, and I'm not totally. I mean, you're usually on fire, but this was especially on fire.
Yeah. So I got myself into a bit of a mess, basically. Sort of like not, and it was like subconscious, but it wasn't like I wasn't stressing about it, but it was this kind of thing that was gnawing away at me. And it was the operation that was coming up, because this operation has been in the calendar for a while, maybe like 3-4 months or something like that. Yeah. And it was coming down the line, and I imagine if anybody puts themselves in my shoes when you get an operation like that, if bass playing is your job, there's a certain amount of anxiety that comes. Like, what happens if? It's really hard not to think like that. But I wasn't down about it or anything. I wasn't super stressed or anything like that. But there was this sort of like, there was a part of me that was definitely thinking about, well, what happens if something goes wrong and I can't play for whatever reason. For instance, I had a nerve block. Not that it worked. That's another story. But I had a nerve block, and 1 in 10,000 people that use their arms after that. I've got like, yeah. Right. So that's the whole thing. So I was worried. Now, at the same time, we were talking in the team, and we decided we wanted to make a new accelerator program. That was the headline, right? We're going to make this new accelerator program. Many of you might have taken one of the accelerators before. Ian and I did the Slap Accelerator a couple of years ago, which is just an incredible program. We've got the Technique Accelerator, Jazz Accelerator, Fretboard Accelerator, Practice Accelerator. We've got a lot of accelerators, and we go for it when we put these accelerators together. And they're different from what we do in the membership, because they're very isolated in terms of their focus. They're focused on one specific thing and just getting you as badass as possible on that specific skill, right? And getting laser focused on that. And we decided we wanted to make a new one. And we were like, we're going to make it around this. We're going to make it around baseline, groove construction, rhythm and time and stuff like that. And and it started ballooning out of control. Yeah, it sure did. It was ballooning. And just for context, what I mean by ballooning, I was going crazy behind the scenes. I was like, it needs to include this. It needs to include that. I want this in it. I want that. And everybody's like, Scott, it's going to be too big. It's going to be too big. And I'm like, it's okay. It just needs to be. Now, in hindsight, I should have shared. Lydia actually shared. She said yesterday, she went, Scott, why didn't you share this? This would have been really helpful for everybody to know.
Truly.
But what was going on behind the scenes is, in my mind, psychologically, is I had like this worry that, what happens if this is the last thing, the last piece of educational content I ever create. That's what was going on internally for me. So that is so dystopian. It is. It's a bit morbid, isn't it? But that's what was happening. So and I was having dreams about it. It was
wow.
And so that drove me to drive myself and the team to create this new program, which started out as an accelerator in principle when we started, but has ended up this incredibly in-depth new program that is, hours long. So we ended it, right? We're looking at the curriculum. We're like, what? This is like obviously not an accelerator. It's something much, much bigger. So we've got that. this curriculum, and we turned it into something called the Full Stack Bassist 12-month intensive. So it's an intensive program, and truly, if I was going to go out in a sort of like cloud, you know what I mean, in a blaze of glory,
in a blaze of glory,
in a blaze of glory, and I wanted to put into a program everything that I think that, you know, aspiring bassists really need to give themselves that full stack bass, you know, make people into a full stack bassist. We can talk about that in a second if you want, but make people into this full stack bassist, somebody that's got all bases covered and can just, you know, just go into any situation. They're going to feel really confident. They're incredibly, in terms of bassline construction, they've got it down. You know, navigating through chord sequences, easy. They know how to interact with the drummer. They're really confident when it comes to their time feel and their rhythm and their groove and the grid. Those bass players, this was it. This is like the brainchild. That was the North Star of this program, that my anxiety and craziness was driving me to create behind the scenes. But yeah, so it is out now. So we've just launched it, and I'm incredibly proud of it. I think it's the only thing like it in the world, which is really exciting to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also have to tell you that I really like this name. We were trying to figure out, you know, what to call this thing.
Yeah.
And Full Stack, it rings so much better to me than, the alternative. We weren't going to call it this, but, you know, I was thinking like, oh, you don't want to be a half stack bassist.
Or the ultimate bassist. We thought about that for a while. Yeah. Ultimate bassist, you know, but like full stack, I think that it really paints a picture of what we set out to do with this program.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I will say I got to do one of the modules in it. So it's mostly Scott creating this program, but I got to do something for SBL that I have always wanted to do in my entire time here, which is talk about time and groove, talk about grid, talk about metronome, talk about precision, talk about ahead and behind the beat, talk about bass as it relates to drums, kick drum. And I've done a little bit of that in a couple of other courses with Steve Gould, the rhythm section development courses that are available in the Academy, but never something this in-depth, and never something that I felt as good about. These are
You've wanted to do this for so long.
I have been wanting to do it for so long. Like I've been saying, Scott, please let me make the groove accelerator.
Yeah.
And so this is essentially one of the modules is essentially what I have always wanted to make in terms of like a groove accelerator.
Yeah. And just for context as well, so it's different in many different ways. If you've taken one of our accelerator programs before, it's very different. So it's all pre-recorded. So pre-record, that's the similarity between the two. But for instance, you know, like it's delivered in lectures. So each module is like a course in itself. So it's not like each module's like 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long, whatever, right? And you're going to nip through it. You're going to have some stuff. This is truly a 12-month program. And this is the first cohort that we're letting enroll this time around. But if you want to go check it out, by the way, I should mention the URL is just fullstackbassist.com. So just fullstackbassist.com. Go check it out. But it's very different because each of the modules is like a full course in itself. So Ian, like he was saying, this is a really extensive module or course just on rhythm, groove, and the grid, and Ian's concepts of time. And he's been really excited about making that for a long time. And then we've got other modules on bassline creation through the lens of chord tones and chromaticism. We've got a module on bassline creation and groove creation through the lens of scales, modes, and pentatonics. Not them all, actually. interestingly, when we started to create this program, the North Star was to get somebody to that full stack status, not within 10 years, right? Not within 5 years, but within this 12-month period that we set out. That was the goal. How do we give people the absolute essentials and get them to go incredibly deep on those vital essentials?
Yes.
So they know them all over the bass and they know specifically how to freaking use them, not just run up and down the fingerboard. Oh, I can play a 2-octave scale. Not that, right? So when I was putting together module 2, which is focused on scales, modes, and pentatonics, I actually got rid of a massive load of stuff. I was like, because that's just noise. And there's actually 5 incredibly important scales. So we focus on those 5. And again, each of the modules could be, easily a 2-month, 8-week block of study for somebody, if not more. And some of them are modular as well. Some of them you can move around. Modules 1 and 2, which are on baseline creation, I would really recommend people to go through them in order. But the others, actually, you can mix and match. They're actually you can actually be quite modular with them. So if you wanted to jump into Ian's rhythm and groove and timekeeping module, you could actually do that at the same time as doing one of the other modules, or you could go in there first, for instance, right? Then we've got modules on playing in different genres. We've got a technique module. The technique module was incredibly fun to put together because, again, I was focusing on the real essentials. And I think that, yeah, I'm like the happiest I've ever been with a program that I've put together in terms of, I think this is truly going to change people's lives in terms of their musicianship. I think that it's going to be, badass. And then on top of that, we've got every single month, there's also pro skills workshops where we're teaching you about chart writing and ear training, and interval recognition, chord recognition, all of them things that are really, really essential for being what we're calling a full stack bassist. So again, go check it out at fullstackbassist.com. And we're doing one more thing as well, which I am super excited about because it's ludicrous. We're letting everybody do the course. If you sign up in this first enrollment, okay, if you sign up in the first enrollment, become one of our founding members of the Full Stack Bassist, we give you a 12-month guarantee, which means you can go through the entire 12-month program, the whole thing, and at the end, if we haven't delivered on our promise, you can get your money back 100%. Which is wild.
Scott, that's insane.
It's insane.
You're telling me these people could do this course for free?
Yeah,
that's
basically.
Insane.
Yeah. Well, because I think I want to get it in as many hands as possible. Do you know what? My proudest moments actually of being a bass educator is, well, first of all, the YouTube channel. I'm incredibly proud about that and the content that we put out. But then some the accelerators. I'm incredibly, when I hear the feedback, and we get more feedback about the accelerators than anything else because they're really focused on one thing. And because they're focused on one thing, it gives people that if you're focused on too many things, you're not going to feel a real lift in your playing. Right. If you're focused on one thing, it's much easier to feel that, oh my word. We've all felt that before. Oh wow. Yes. I just got way better in the last sort of 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And that's what I'm really excited about this program, because it is really focused on one thing. It's a little broader, but I would say it's still focused really hard on one thing, which is really baseline creation, groove creation, feel, time, being a real bassist.
Yeah. Sometimes we get the question of ooh, who's this for? Or what level is this for? And correct me if I'm wrong, but this program to me feels like it's not for an absolute beginner. It's for somebody that's maybe been playing the bass for a little bit of time, maybe even is in some bands. Maybe you're playing at church. Maybe you're actually kind of doing it, but deep down, you kind of don't know what you're doing. And I don't mean that you can't learn some things and you can't play some cool licks and that you can't even play in a band. But if the keyboard player is oh, that's a 2-5-1. Oh, that's like a C7 arpeggio. You kind of pretend to know what they mean.
Yeah. Oh, this in the key of G flat. And you're like, oh, what does that even mean?
Right. But it's like, it's almost like that thing of when you meet somebody new and they've told you their name a number of times and you continue to run into them and you have to just pretend like you know their name because it's gone too far.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're a bass player out there and you feel like, if you feel convicted by what I'm saying, and it isn't an indictment, right? It's just, I remember feeling that early on of like, I could kind of play, I had a pretty good ear, but when it came to certain chord stuff or certain rhythms, someone would say, oh, that's on the E of 3. And I would nod like, oh, sure. I know what that is. And then I would take a guess.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to, look, if you're doing this and you want to do this, you don't want that to be you. You don't want that to be you long term.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what this program really addresses is like, no. Let's solve that. Let's get rid of that anxiety in your playing, in your life. And, instead of being a half stack bassist, we're going to make you a full stack bassist.
Full stack bassist, dude. You're a great example of a full stack bassist.
Oh, come on now.
Come
on now.
But it's truly it. Like I was thinking about driving here. I was thinking, who are the best examples of like full stack? Because full stack bassist isn't, and you will see if you go check it out at fullstackbassist.com, you will see we explicitly say no solos, no jazz, no fancy pyrotechnics, no two-hand no, we're not talking about any of that stuff, right? And actually, Ian, you can play some pretty mean two-handed tapping, I will say. But it's the stuff that, when you those bass players that just get the gigs, that just get the gigs, they do it not because they're two-handed tapping, even though
that's so true.
They get the gigs because they've got that kind of like X factor. And I guess my big belief is that X factor can actually be very strategically learned. There's there's a roadmap to it. We all weren't there. We all didn't maybe some freaks did, but I certainly didn't. And I know that you didn't. We've all told our stories of doom and gloom and like what happened to us on the way up as we were learning, so
of course, yes,
it's absolutely learnable. The unfortunate reality is though, it is incredibly hard to understand what to focus on without doing the journey. Do you know what I mean? Like
yes.
How do you know what's essential and what's non-essential without actually making the trip? And that's why I think that programs like the Full Stack Bassist are so valuable, because we, not even me, we have done our best ability we've done our best shot at cutting out all of the stuff that you actually don't need and focusing really hard on the stuff that you do need. So we've done that trip for you. We're reflecting. We're like, turns out that thing, that fallopian flat 9 scale, I shouldn't be focused on it. I should actually be focused on this thing over here. So
yeah. And it's not to say that if you take this course, it might drive you to check out some of those things that are more on the fringes, some more sort of the adventurous scales, digging into melodic, harmonic, minor. But it is true that you don't have to have that advanced jazz vocabulary to be a great bassist or to be a full stack bassist, to get gigs, to have a career, right?
Yeah.
And I think, instead of just doing a curriculum of everything, absolutely everything under the sun.
Curriculum of everything.
Curriculum of everything. I think that there's material out there, and there are institutions and channels and businesses that teach that kind of thing. But I feel like it's so lengthy, right?
Yeah.
To get through everything, well, it's your life's work, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of that, because we've talked about curriculum before a lot, you and I, Scott, and Eric on the team too, and we have thought about how best to do this. And I really like what we came up with, which is a year intensive of getting you of trajectory, getting you from I can play, but I don't really know what I'm doing, to I can play and I know what I'm doing. And and that makes your playing better, your confidence better, right? That's what we endeavored to do with this. So it's not the curriculum of everything.
The curriculum of everything.
It's the stuff that Scott and I truly believe that you need to be a confident player.
Yeah.
To be a musician in the world that plays the bass.
Yeah. I'm spent, by the way, just to put it out there, like as you're talking, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, and now I'm done. This is it. This might be it. I'm going to act like I couldn't do anything else ever again.
That's it, everybody. This is what we got.
Holy moly. I think, it took a long time to put this together.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But if this speaks to you, if you're like, I really do need to get a handle on what the modes really are and how actually to build bass lines with them. So something else too is this entire program is based around music. So it's not just running the important modes. We're going to take the Dorian mode, and then Scott is going to show you what are bass lines that are constructed with this mode, how to play it.
Yeah.
The crucial fingerings. There's a bunch of ways you can play it, but the crucial ways to play it.
Yeah.
And then how to improvise with it or how to create with it. So
there's like assignments and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Yes. You get assigned like specific grooves that have chord progressions where you're assigned sort of like, hey, you need to create now a bass line using this scale. Here's an example of what I do, but then you have to go do your own as well. Like it's really cool. By the way, talking about modes, it was really fun. As I was putting that mode section together, I was like, so which modes are the most useful? Which really are? Okay. Right. And when you get into some of the modes, like there's literally no bass lines ever being created with them. You're like, oh wow, that's in. Like you can get these like far out wacky ones, but like songs. But for the most part, there's not that many. Ionian, the major scale, lots. Yeah. Dorian, lots. Mixolydian, lots. Right, lots.
Yep.
Aeolian, a few.
Yeah, quite a few in metal.
Major pentatonic, oh my word, so many. Minor pentatonic, so many. It was wild, actually. I was like, that's interesting. Yeah, and in the program, we also give you examples of all of them bass lines. So, for instance, you want to learn the Mixolydian mode, great, here it is, here's the fingerings, yada, yada, yada. But I'm also saying, and here's all the bass lines in the past that have been written with the Mixolydian mode. Go check them out. Yep. It's really cool. Here's one for you.
It's very cool.
You'll all know this one. That's my favorite Mixolydian mode bass line. Love it.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I'm going to break my rule and sit like this for a second. Bob Babbitt, dude.
Killer
I tell you what, man, I have gone bass player crazy. After this stint in hospital, I've just gone bass. There's so many bass players I've been geeking out on. Bob Babbitt, Phil Chen. I went down to Phil Chen passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. But man, he was awesome. There's some great bass videos on YouTube with Phil Chen before he passed away. He was a real source of knowledge about Jameson. He actually played with Rod Stewart back in the day, Jeff Beck, and I went down the rabbit hole. I cannot wait to make more podcasts. I just want to keep on doing this podcast. But let's cut it because we've talked a lot. But I cannot. There's so many more conversations I want about.
I know.
Bass players I've been nerding out on. Yeah. So let's wrap it. Just everybody.
Yes.
fullstackbassist.com if you want to go check it out. It's open for enrollment for a short period of time. Generally, we open these things once a year. So this is it. Full Stack Bassist. In total transparency, we're doing like a special founders rate. I think it's about $500. I think it will be doubling next time we put it out. It's definitely going to be going up. This is a special founders rate. Again, you get a 12-month long guarantee, money back guarantee. So you can do the entire program and then ask for your money back at the end if it hasn't completely rocked your world. Whoa, fullstackbassist.com. What were you going to say, Ian?
Before we go, it's really, really good to have you back.
Oh, dude. It's good to be back.
It's really good. And it's so great to see you with the
and
bass in your
you've been
lap,
on
dude.
tour as well. We were like, not even like passing ships in the net. It's like we lost each other at sea.
I know, man. It did feel that way.
Yeah.
It did feel that way. It was so fun to show up to this today and see you with a bass in your lap. You sound like Scott Devine. You look like Scott Devine. You are Scott Devine, dude.
Bit thinner. I've lost a stone.
Wow.
There's a whole story around that. We'll talk about it next time. Anyway, and a quick thanks to Connor, Alan, and Gav behind the scenes here, making things run.
Fellas.
Connor's been setting up some fancy shenanigans we actually haven't used on this podcast, but we will be in the future. And Alan and Gav are sitting behind Connor, just trying to grasp what the hell he's thinking about, because he's a bit of a whiz. He's a whiz kid. He's the nerd. We've got the nerd and the two old dudes. Oh, hang it
We're
up.
lucky to have you guys.
Thanks, guys. Anyway, take it easy, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care, everybody.